Welcome to Wales Tech Week 2021. Thank you to our partners. Enjoy the session.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Very exciting and dramatic intro to the session. Delighted to be here on the green stage for a session about Wales being a world leader in recycling. And we'll be talking about the circular economy and hearing from some of Wales's really inspirational businesses that are leading the way in helping us to build a circular economy. My name's Lyle. I run an organisation in South West Wales called For the Region, and we talk a lot in South West Wales about how we can build a circular economy, one that makes much better use of all our resources and creates value out of those things that traditionally we might think of as waste streams. You know, Wales is third in the world for recycling, but actually first in the UK, second in Europe. And it's such an amazing achievement. And like many of the achievements that we have here in Wales, we probably don't talk about it enough, we don't shout about it enough, and it's a really great success story. But it's one of many ways in which Wales is leading the world. And with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, we're really thinking differently across Wales about the importance of developing businesses that are not just good for the economy, but that bring so much environmental and social value to our communities as well. And so the businesses that we're going to hear from today are all about that. They're about making value out of waste. They're about building the kind of economy that we're going to need for the future, and really, I think, blazing a trail. We've got a handful of amazing companies with us today. Over the next few years, we're going to need to grow many more companies that are really tackling the challenges that we're facing with the climate emergency and biodiversity loss, and also reinvesting in the well-being of local communities. First up is Rosalie from Smile Plastics. Smile Plastics is a really inspiring company based on the Gower in my own region. And it's a fantastically inspiring business making value out of waste plastic. Welcome, Rosalie. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Right, could everyone see my slides?
Thank you.
Right, so I'm Rosalie McMillan. I'm one of the co-founders of Smile Plastics. Smile Plastics is a materials design and manufacturing house based on the Gower in Crofty. We've been around since 2015, and what we do is we create large-scale architectural panels and products from recycled plastics, and we sell them to interior designers and architects for a whole host of different applications in sort of commercial and residential spaces, which I can go into in more detail in a moment. But really, we have two main aims. We're wanting to make really beautiful, sustainable plastics that are fully circular, and we're doing this in order to sort of challenge the ideas about waste and the system that creates it. So we're trying to make really, really beautiful plastics and encourage us all to value plastics and the materials around us a little bit more, and therefore throw away less. So I mentioned a sort of circular offering. So the materials that we make, they are 100% recycled. We work with a range of different waste streams. Tends to be plastics packaging, food packaging, medical packaging, cosmetic packaging, those sorts of packaging products, and we transform them into these panels, and because they are kind of single plastics, and because we have very sort of low energy production methodologies, it does mean that the materials that we're creating are not sort of degraded in the process of manufacture, which actually means that we should be able to recycle them sort of indefinitely, time and time again. And we've recently launched a buyback scheme as well. So fabricators who we're selling our material to, we can take back all of their offcuts, and then with our customers, if the material gets to the end of its life after a project, we're very happy to take back all of that material and repurpose it and reimagine it into more panels for current customers and also new customers. And we've been in quite an exciting journey over the last few years trying to scale up our production, but we're now making these supersized sheets that are 3 meters by 1.2 meters. So it's quite an exciting time for us, and we're trying to also ramp up our production as well. And I'll talk in a little bit more detail in just a moment, but there is quite a lot of flexibility to customize the materials that we make for our clients. And because we're, small scale, it means that we can make just a single sheet for our customers right the way through to rolling out small and medium batch runs of a material. And the materials are really versatile and easy to work with, and they can be used in a whole host of different ways. So just as an example, we sell a lot within the retail environment, and here are a couple of examples where they've been used for kind of bespoke cabinetry, and also plinths as well, within hospitality for countertops, and also sort of reception areas and tabletops, within office environments for sort of statement boardroom tables, desks, and also furniture or room dividers. And because the plastics, they've got some great material properties, they are mold proof and fully waterproof as well, which means that bathroom environments are excellent as well. So vanity tops, splashbacks, bath panels, you name it. So with custom materials, we have a range of customers who come to us after a very specific aesthetic. It might be, colour matching, it might be a particular pattern that they're wanting to create, and we work directly with them to kind of realise that in the material itself. And more and more now, we're also getting customers who come to us who have specific waste streams that they would like us to explore reimagining into panel products as well. So I just wanted to share just a couple of examples and just to sort of bring it to life, really. So we were approached by a department store in London to take their Christmas decorations, their sort of tinsel from 1 year, and then sort of reimagine it into the materials themselves for displays the following year. And it was a really exciting project, and the narrative of the material we felt was really, really exciting as well. And then secondly, we're working locally with Cum Environmental and also Surfability in Caswell, which is a sort of community interest surf academy. They're sort of running community beach cleanups locally on the Gower, and we're taking all of that, the beach cleanups and making them into panels, like you can see in the example on the slide. So you can really kind of see the story, the kind of history of the plastics and the materials that we create. So right now, what we're doing really is we're creating the kind of blueprint microfactory here in South Wales. We've come a long way. We're exporting about 60% of everything that we make, which is fantastic in so many ways, but that also sort of takes its toll in terms of kind of air miles, etc. And really our focus now is this idea of creating a distributed network of microfactories around the world. So we're looking at partners in different countries to work with to create local microfactories. So that's all about looking for local sourcing of waste streams and manufacturing into panels and products for local markets around the world. So we're on quite a journey, quite an exciting journey with all of that, and we're really really excited about the future and those collaborations. But lastly, I just wanted to kind of finish on the idea that what we're doing here at Smile Plastics is it's one part of the solution. What we're doing is really just a drop in the ocean, and the solution is quite a complex and multifaceted one. But we're really hoping that through what we're doing, we can sort of create these ripples around the world and really start engaging people and exciting people to value plastics a little bit more and throw away less. So that's it from me. I'm happy to take questions whenever the time comes.
Thank you so much, Rosalie. I think you did really well there with, I think, a screaming baby in the background as well. So
I'm really sorry about
I think you did admirably to keep going. Yeah, an amazing example. And as you say, you know, it's these small projects that hopefully create ripples, they show what's possible and they blaze a trail. But one small company can't be the whole solution. But I love the visibility of that, you know, the beach clean plastic, then being visible in the finished material. It's such a great story, and it's helping to open people's minds to actually what can be done with these waste streams. But really interested in what you said about the distributed manufacturing and actually trying to make these materials in the local places where the waste is being collected. So that is a very exciting journey. Please put your comments and questions for Rosalie in the chat, because we're going to have a Q&A session after we've heard from all four of our speakers this afternoon. But for now, thank you very much, Rosalie. We'll perhaps talk to you a bit more in a little while.
Okay, thank you.
So next up this afternoon, we're hearing from Adria Tarrida from Polytag. Polytag have got a pioneering innovation that's trying to deal with packaging waste using technology in a really innovative way. Another great example of a company based here in Wales, really pioneering and making a fantastic innovation to tackle some of these big challenges. Adria, are you ready? Can I pass
ready,
over
yes.
to you? Great.
Hi, thank you. Hopefully you can all see my screen. It's a very timely presentation, this one, in this week, because we are just starting a pilot scheme in Conway Heights, in Conway in North Wales. So very, very interesting, and I'll take you through what we're trying to do there. But basically, what we do, we see ourselves as an enabling technology to facilitate government and brand owners to move into the packaging circular economy through greater engagement with consumers, with regulators and recyclers. We see ourselves as an enabler for digital deposit return schemes. There's just been very recently, a consultation nationwide about deposit return schemes. Some of you might remember, I certainly do, back in my days in Barcelona, when you would buy a bottle of Coca-Cola and then you would go back to the shop and retrieve the deposit. So this is what's coming. It's going to be legislation in UK-wide in 2023. Well, this is going a bit ahead, and we want to enable that in a digital way. So to make it as convenient as possible for everyone to participate and recover their deposits from home. Also, brand owners will be hit by another piece of legislation, packaging recycling liability, EPR, and we want to allow all of the packaging manufacturers to use more recycled materials, whilst collecting also rich data sets about the plastic, what happens with the plastic, etc. So the problem that we're trying to tackle here is that in general, there are low recycling rates. We've been stalled at 60-70% for a long time. Wales is way ahead of many other regions, but still, the governments feel that they need to start legislating to increase those recycling rates. So these things like deposit return schemes, EPR, and consistency of collection, it's being, as we speak, legislated in the UK. Littering and plastic in the environment, brands do not want to be associated with the problem, and obviously, as a citizen, it's quite disgusting. We don't want plastics in the oceans, plastics in the environment, and also it's a real problem for packaging manufacturers. They don't have high quality post-consumer recycled materials, especially when it comes down to materials that can be food contact, right? And they need to use virgin materials instead of recycled materials. So we've mapped out all of the problems. I won't bore you mapping them, discussing them one by one, but the cycle is less than perfect. We are far from a circular economy in terms of packaging. There's a lot of leakage out of the system at all of the points, and we need to introduce a lot of new virgin materials in order to keep that system going. It's not sustainable as it is. Conventional DRS is coming. As I said before, there are countries that have implemented it already, like Denmark and Germany and Singapore. Nowadays they rely on the extensive deployment of reverse vending machines, but they do have really the big disadvantages. In the UK context, they're very expensive. They're going to cost everyone 6.3 billion in the next decade. It's very, very expensive. The retailers don't want them either because it's lost retail space, additional resources. The local authorities don't want them either because they're losing some valuable streams that they sell at the moment and fund the collection curbside system. They risk the exclusion of vulnerable population and are very inconvenient for everybody. So basically now you would need to keep at home your bottles uncrushed, waiting to go back to a collection point and return them uncrushed. That's very inconvenient. So we want to use the really nice curbside system that we have in the UK to do that. They also represent increased CO2 emissions. They have a big carbon footprint. And in general, they're poor value for money. It's akin to in a day and age that where everybody doesn't use cash anymore, we're all paying with our digital banking, and somebody wants to go and install thousands of ATMs around the country. It doesn't make sense in a digital era to go back to such a physical thing. So they introduce new problems. So this is our solution. We are patent pending track and trace technology that allows packaging manufacturers and brands to assign unique individual codes to each unit of a product. So each unit of a product would have a unique fingerprint that is different from the next one. So each bottle of Coke will have a different code from the next, okay? Then with our supporting IT, these codes can be read at any point of the life cycle of the product, enabling the implementation of this digital deposit return scheme and many other benefits. So limiting extended producer responsibility for brands. Brands could build on top of that loyalty schemes. They could have enhanced traceability through their supply chain, etc. So this is how we see it at the moment. So the FMCG companies or the label producers would print those intelligent markers. They look a bit like a QR code, but they're a data matrix. It's a very clever piece of information there, because even if you lose 30% of the code, it's still so redundant that it can be read anyway. And then for the application of deposit return schemes, the household would scan those codes with their app, with their mobile phone, with an app that we have developed. And this app will give them information. It does give information already to the participants in this pilot in Conway about how to recycle the bottle that they're using. And then as well, it assigns that specific code to that user so they can claim that deposit return. And then they just recycle it as normal. They just put it on the curbside, and the collection truck, once it scans the bin, then releases the deposit return. We are also working on material and plastic recovery facilities with AI systems that will enhance the capabilities by reading the codes that we are printing on the bottles. And at any point, our data cloud is collecting data and producing this rich data set about how people recycle and how to improve the recyclability and the whole cycle at any point. These are some images of the actual pilot that we're doing in Conway. These are bottles of water that we have given them with this printed unique codes, and they can scan it with our app to recycle it before recycling it. We have looked at many other ways of printing codes as well, straight on the substrate of the bottle, and also using UV. So here what you can see on this right-hand side photograph is a label being with a little UV light, and it's covered with the same code that you see here on the visible spectrum, on the UV spectrum. That makes it much more readable by machines, because you don't need to orientate the bottle in the right direction. It's covered, the whole label is covered with these codes. We have done in the past a trial which had really good results, and that's the one that reassured the Welsh government to work with us on this Conway pilot, which is happening as we speak. This is the first week. We're going to have the first collection tomorrow on the curbside, and we're doing it in partnership with RAP, that have provided the recruitment team that has recruited all the neighbors in Conway Heights, all the residents, and also they will evaluate at the end from a consumer perspective how good is the system. We are also working with the AMRC Cymru in Broughton. They will do more the technical side of things. They will help us refine the technology on that side, and it's done in partnership with the Authority as well, in Conway with the Welsh government. I'm going to show you quickly an animation. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear the sound, but don't worry too much. There's only some stock music, so it's more the animation that counts really. But so you can see exactly what's happening in this pilot. There we are. Oh dear, got stuck on the very last slide. Apologies for that, my internet connection, but it was pretty much done. So back to our presentation. So yeah, one other project that we're working with is the One Bin to Rule Them All, led by the University of Manchester, with all these big companies also engaged. And again, it's all about how we can use one bin, make it super simple for people to recycle, and with technology, being able to segregate those waste streams, food, non-food, different types of plastic, etc. So we can recycle much more than we are able to recycle at the moment. So we're working again with the AMRC and the University of Sheffield in Broughton in North Wales, with several big brands to make this project a success, and to make it to refine the technology that we're using. And we're looking at everything. We've looked at how to print very closely on labels, on plastic, on glass and cans, the UV spectrum, on the visible spectrum, all of the FMCG needs. Obviously, as you can imagine, FMCG the producers might be a bit worried about line speeds and costs and efficiencies, but we want to make them aware as well of the new traceability capabilities and the opportunities to come to connect with the consumers. The consumer-facing app is being translated into Welsh for this pilot, and we are really looking at usability and accessibility. So really making sure that everybody can use those, but also providing alternatives for people that may not have a mobile phone or don't want to use their mobile phone for these applications. So we are also enabling people to do it without their phone in this pilot. We're looking at machine vision and scanning systems to enable material recovery facilities and plastic recovery facilities to segregate at a very granular level. And we're developing EPR capabilities. So basically, what's next for us? We're looking for industrial partnerships for pilots. We will be continue working with the Welsh Government in future pilots around Wales. And we're going to have upcoming investment rounds. So if you want to contact us, please do so through our website, polytag.co.uk, or sending an email to myself or at info@polytag.co.uk. That's pretty much it, what I wanted to share with you. Thanks for the opportunity to present. And that's all.
Wow, well, thank you for that. I mean, it really highlights what a tricky problem we have with packaging and how many different parties there are that all need to coordinate. So the use of technology in this way looks really interesting, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot from that pilot in Conway about how ready are consumers to take that responsibility, and how that whole supply chain works. It's really fascinating. I mean, it's about creating new habits.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the things we wanted to avoid, right? People are quite used to recycle through curbside, so we don't want to add new things for them to do. It's just one extra step. And the other thing that we're doing with the pilot as well, some of the participants have volunteered to use another app, a second app, to track how they are experiencing the whole pilot. So we'll have really in-depth information, both qualitative and quantitative information from this pilot to inform the next steps of the technology.
Brilliant. Well, it will be really interesting to look at that data. And, you know, we are in such a strong position in Wales, and I suppose across the UK, but particularly here in Wales, with such strong curbside recycling systems, and that habit change of getting us all to wash and put out our waste in different boxes for recycling, that habit change has happened. So hopefully it's a strong launch pad to take it to the next level. But thank you so much for coming and talking to us about that. Really fascinating, and hopefully we can hear from you again after the pilot, what was learned and what was discovered. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lovely. Great. Well, straight on to our third speaker for this afternoon. I'm delighted to introduce Jane Hall from Green Edge. Green Edge is a digital environmental consultancy, and Jane is a chartered environmental consultant. So, Jane, talk to us about what you're doing differently, what solutions you guys are pioneering. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks ever so much for involving Green Edge applications in today's seminar. It's been really interesting so far, and I really liked the idea that we're one little drop in the ocean and that hopefully we'll create a ripple, because I think that exactly sums up a lot of things that I'm involved in as well. My presentation today is to talk about the plastics issue and why that's such a problem and what we're doing here in Wales to try and address that. Really, the drivers for change are very well known. 80% of the plastic ever produced is in landfills, in the environment or in the sea. There's a big push to make better use of our natural resources, and the impact that plastics have indirectly and directly on global warming really needs to be addressed, because there's a massive opportunity for using recycled material, which results in lower carbon emissions overall than using raw materials. And there's clearly a significant reduction if materials are reused. One of the projects that I'm working on at the moment has been challenging for the right and also for the wrong reasons. The wrong reasons are largely related to COVID, which I won't bore you with right now. But some of the reasons that we wanted to do the project relate to a lot of issues that other recyclers are facing. It's a RAP-funded project, which has come from Welsh Government and EU funding, and it is to increase recycled content in products For the project, we picked mortar tubs, which I have to say have been particularly challenging for lots of reasons. But we wanted to do a challenging project because one of the barriers we wanted to overcome is that in some way recycled materials are inferior to those made of virgin materials. We're particularly looking within the project to overcome certain barriers to recycling that were identified by RAP, those being technical, commercial, in that recycled is sometimes more expensive than virgin plastic, recycled material availability and regulatory barriers. We wanted to engage with the supply chain to develop a full circular economy model to overcome these barriers. The particular ones that I'm going to talk about today related to tech are the technical, commercial and material availability barriers. So what did we do? First of all, we dealt with material strength issues. So we used recycled plastic in different percentages, and the 100% recycled plastic actually performed very well and has so far met the performance standards that need to be in place for use in the construction sector. There's still more testing to be done, but what we've done so far looks really good. Sourcing the recycler was a huge challenge, a big data challenge. It was really difficult to find places to actually find the recyclers, and also really challenging to find suitable facilities that could take a mortar tub with cakes on cement and get that removed and made back into granules in order for it to be recycled again. So that was a really difficult part of the project. We also want to try and return the mortar tubs that we've made back into the process so that they can be made into new tubs and probably more creative things like we've heard about already today. We've done that using QR codes after a long session looking at different ways of tracking waste. QR codes are relatively cheap, they're very easy to apply, and most people now, thanks to COVID, have got a QR code reader on their phone if their phone camera isn't working that way. So we used existing asset tracking technology, but used it in a new way. It was a very low cost solution, and we'll see how that goes. So what have we actually achieved? Well, we discovered that there was a shortfall in the supply of recyclers within Wales, but also within the UK. We discovered that there was a large number of cement mortar tubs in existence because places that have these mortar tubs don't want to landfill them. They take up a huge amount of space in skips. So a lot of the time they're just kind of sitting there on construction sites and in quarries where they've been returned. So we, as part of the project, arranged for them to be recycled. We've diverted nearly 1,000 from landfill already, and we've set up arrangements with companies to make sure that there's a continued arrangement for old tubs to be recycled. We're also launching a large campaign to make people aware that it is possible to recycle those tubs. One survey that we carried out uncovered that most waste companies perceive that they can't be cleaned up enough to be recycled. So we've worked really hard to address that. We developed a circular economy model to turn discarded tubs into mortar tubs and other things. And then we're using the waste tracking to support their return. And we've demonstrated with Cardiff University's assistance that recycled plastics can be made into robust products. We discovered a significant challenge in finding the right kind of plastics, and this is where we use data and tech in order to sort that. So we sifted through a huge number of waste movements to find out which companies actively recycled the types of plastics that we wanted them to recycle. And then we used those findings to enhance RAP's circular economy plastics tool. The plastic circular economy tool holds a large amount of data on the whole supply chain for plastics within Wales. So it was fantastic to be part of that. And it was great to know that all of the kind of unsuitable plastics, as well as the suitable ones that we found, all of that data has been reused within that. So other people looking for the right kind of plastic for their technologies can now learn from what we found. So there's a lot of data in there about melt flow indices and all kinds of things. So we handed that data over to RAP, and they've reused it in their plastics tool. In summary, it was great to be part of what was a very challenging project within a dedicated project team. And one of the things that has been fantastic is that we have had such a lot of challenging issues outside of the recycling issues. So COVID, the machine that we wanted to buy was in China and got stuck there because of COVID. Most of the organisations that we've worked with have been affected in some way, either by being closed down or on reduced staffing levels because of COVID. And all of the organisations involved in this were extremely dedicated and haven't given up on the project through some really tough times. And I think that just shows the commitment within Wales to improving the situation with plastics and with recycling. We use new and existing technologies to address the plastics problem. We use data and analytical software to break down a lot of huge numbers of data. So every waste movement within England and Wales, we looked at. So that's thousands and thousands of waste movements to use that to work out which sites could best help us in this project. That wasn't easy. And I think that really from this, data analytics and software development really needs to take a leap forward within the waste industry so that that data can be readily analysed. I think it needs increased adoption and increase to improve the use of waste and resources data, and particularly encouraging open data sources to better use that. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be involved with the project. It's been a win-win, a win for the environment, a win for recycling, and we've managed to to find homes for really difficult waste streams, and it's been great. So I'll be happy to take any questions on that when the time comes.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, another really insightful project that really is just pointing at the scale of the problem that we're facing. And as Rosalie said at the beginning, everything we're looking at here they're almost like hints towards the suggestions, the solutions, aren't they? Where, tackling, as you say, the perceptions within waste sites about what materials are or are not recyclable, communication with those waste sites, really important.
And I did give her a little ripple analogy, because that's exactly what's happened here. And as we've overcome certain barriers, we've been able to use the findings in other areas, like giving all of the data that we didn't use for the wrong kind of plastics, because they might be the right kind of plastics to someone else, over to RAP. As we were trying to find potential project partners, we discovered that one big cement manufacturer had thousands of these tubs stuck on one of their sites and wasn't really sure what to do with them. So once we linked up that supply chain, we had to do some testing to work out whether this particular company could strip out the cement from the tub. Obviously, we got back in touch with them, and then are regularly using this waste site to recycle their tubs. So it was a great landfill diversion ripple effect from what we were doing.
Yeah, and isn't there something about the scale of Wales as a nation where we can build these sorts of circular relationships over time? Takes a bit of work, but we're a manageable size of nation. We can build these relationships in the supply chain and hopefully kind of close the loop in lots of different ways. So that's a really great example there. And yeah, just to flag up again, RAP has done a huge amount of work in mapping the plastics supply chain across Wales. So that's a really useful resource for everyone, and I think they're now embarking on a similar piece of work around paper fibres as well. So that mapping of where these waste materials are is a big part of the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, definitely, and working to work together on this so that we've got all this data. We just need somebody to coordinate the data and make it readily available for others to use.
Yeah, great. All right, well, lovely, Jane. Just an encouragement for everyone to leave comments in the chat. We'll have a bit of a Q&A after our next speaker, but any thoughts you've got to share on what's been displayed so far? Some great innovative solutions, but certainly pointing at the scale of the challenge, I think. So our next speaker, our final speaker of the afternoon, is Angus Graham, and he's the founder of a company called Splosh. And Splosh, fantastic company name, they provide mail order household products, from what I can see, but in a special way that reduces plastic waste and that makes those things readily refillable. So lovely to see you, Angus. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Tell us all about Splosh.
Thank you, Dawn. Well, Splosh makes it easy to cut out plastic waste from a range of household products. Health and beauty products like shampoos and conditioners, laundry products, home cleaning products, everything from toilet bowl cleaner to kitchen and bathroom cleaner. And we do that by selling direct to UK consumers refillable bottles. The idea came to me a few years back when I was doing the recycling in a car park of a supermarket in Hay. And as I put the plastic bottles into the recycling bin, I saw a young mum coming out with identical bottles, having just bought them in the supermarket. And the craziness of the current system just really became very clear to me. And really, at the heart of what we're trying to do is to make refilling easier than recycling. So how does it work? Well, you start off with bottles if you're a customer, and then you buy refills. Now, these come as concentrates, which means they're very small, so small, in fact, that they'll fit through your letterbox. And then customers add tap water to create the ready-to-use product. It's not just about cutting plastic waste. Also, critically, Splosh is great value. For example, our kitchen cleaners start from around 85p if you're on a subscription for a 500ml bottle. Laundry liquid is now down to about 8p per load. And we achieve this by a very vertically integrated business. Raw materials come in one end of the factory, Royal Mail come out at the end to collect. But it's also about convenience as well. You can subscribe easily, and we have an app as well to make it really easy to purchase as well. But the heart of the business is our refill pouch. So lots of different types of products, one refill pouch, and it's plastic. So why is it plastic? And we've experimented over the years with many different types of packaging material, but plastic has a flexible pouch, has allowed us to create excellent performance. We found it very hard to achieve the performance we wanted using other packaging materials. It also allows us to be very price competitive because it's one refill type for every product. And also critically, it's flexible. And that means that when it's empty, it becomes small. And that makes it much more economic to have a return system than if it didn't collapse. So plastic, we have to recognize, is a good material and makes our lives possible. And indeed, in many ways, it's superior to cardboard in terms of CO2 emissions. But plastic waste is an environmental catastrophe. And how do we deal with that? Well, we stop throwing it away, and we can stop throwing it away if we give it value. And value to plastic after its first use is the critical thing that we're trying to achieve. And in many ways, the business to whom plastic has most value is the business who sold that plastic in the first place. And we see it as our responsibility that once plastic is sold by us, it stays with us. It doesn't go anywhere else. So in terms of how it works, customers are encouraged to send back their used pouches, and it's free if you send back a certain amount. And obviously, first objective is to refill them, which we do to a limited extent. We're going to be doing that to a much greater extent. And we call those refill pouches crinklies because they're crinkly, and they sell at a small discount. But what we've also worked on is a means of reprocessing our own plastics. So we shred the pouches, wash them, and then granulate them. And I've just got here on my desk. These are granulated pouches that are now, well, they're turned into granules of the same color. And that's critical, really, because that gives them value. They can then be reformed and then remade into a new product. And this is an example this is a test product we created, which is an ice scraper. We are working on creating our first product, which is going to be a relevant product to Splosh customers. It is going to be a high value product. This is going to be something that is going to be desirable, and it is itself going to be reprocessable back into that same product. So a completely circular process. That's it in a nutshell. I think I would say that we are on a journey. There's all sorts of wonderful innovations going on at the moment to try and deal with this. And as other speakers have said, we're just part of a movement, and as we all in entrepreneurial ways try and solve this issue. But we very much believe in the circular economy. We believe that packaging materials should stay with the seller of those packaging materials, and that if value is given to that material once used, then it can be resold by that same company, a completely circular process. Thanks very much.
Very inspiring, and as you say, you know, it's about these kind of entrepreneurial solutions to this huge challenge. I really resonated when you said, you know, we see it as our responsibility, you know, the waste that you're generating as a business. So many manufacturers of so many products around the world, once it is shipped, they wash their hands of it, it's no longer their problem. So, I mean, that's a key thing, isn't it? That mindset shift for manufacturers to take responsibility and still see their waste as their problem.
We would see it as an incorrect calculating of profit. So the costs to the environment of most manufacturers is not calculated in profit and loss account, and that's the heart of this, and it should be. And if it was, then the circular economy would just explode in a few months. So yeah, completely agree.
And do you think that big manufacturers and small manufacturers around the world are sufficiently motivated to take that responsibility? I mean, at the moment, it seems to be perhaps those very ethical, pioneering entrepreneurs such as yourselves that are looking at this differently. Do you see that happening at scale?
Yeah, it's starting to happen, which is great. I think what's pushing it is customers. You know, most customers now find that plastic waste, or indeed waste generally, is a key motivator in their purchase decisions. So if there's a brand out there is saying, hey, look, we solved it, and by the way, it's easy to solve this problem of plastic waste, then there's a good chance those brands are going to succeed. And if those brands succeed, then other big brands will follow. So I think there's a great wave that's sort of crashing over us all at the moment.
I appreciated what you said about the cost as well, because often it costs a lot to be green. It costs a lot to make those ethical choices. So how important has that been in your sort of marketing and in designing the product to make it affordable and try and tackle that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, that's been critical to us. I mean, and we're achieving that, as I said, by this vertical integration. I mean, I just don't think it works if you say, hey, look, here's a great green idea, but it's really expensive. That's always going to be niche. I mean, our laundry liquids, our liquid tab equivalents are cheaper than Aldi by about 30%, you know, and we're just a little business in mid Wales. So there are ways of achieving this. I mean, that's not just about cutting out the plastic waste. That's just creating a completely different business model. But yeah, I think it's critical, and but it is, you know, it can be quite hard, and the concept of creating value out of our reprocessed plastics was quite a tough one to work out exactly how we're going to do it. But hopefully later this year we'll be launching the first commercially viable product made from reprocessed plastics from Splosh.
Well, you're very suspenseful about that. You consciously haven't told us what your product is, so I'm thinking that's because you don't want to tell us.
That's right.
Yeah, great. Well, Chris might turn on the cameras for our other speakers and we can go into a bit of discussion. But there's one question that's come up in the chat for you, Angus, about how you're supplying, you know, it's by mail order at the moment. Have you considered other routes to market? Do you think there are partnerships you could create with zero waste shops to do refills that way?
Yeah, we've had a huge amount of demand from zero waste shops, so this is something that we're looking into. You know, we have to recognize, you know, going to a retailer is where most people buy our kind of products. So, you know, it would be foolish for us to completely ignore that. So yes, I would say to those who contacted us, we are actively looking at this, and our packaging as it stands isn't exactly right for retail, but there are some quite straightforward tweaks we can make to make it hopefully great for retail. And I think our focus really would be on small retailers as much as we could.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting, the mail order method, and particularly the subscription model, and particularly, you know, given COVID and our shopping habits have changed and we are buying more online. And so I can imagine that that's probably working really well for your business.
Yeah, it's been very good for us. Obviously, very bad, for many. I think people just buy in lots of different ways. You know, some people want to buy through subscription. For others, that just isn't right. One product we've just launched recently, hopefully targeting different buying habits, is what we call supersize refills, which is sort of great for small businesses and for busy families, where you get very substantial price discounts by buying bigger. So we try and offer as many different options as we practically can.
Fantastic. I mean, what you've said there, Angus, about, you know, the affordability, I'd like to come back to Rosalie and talk about the Smile Plastics thing, because there's a product that is very much high-end, very desirable finished material that is going into sort of high-end products and high-end, I suppose, interiors. We've talked a bit this afternoon about the need to challenge the perceptions about recycled material, and rather than thinking that a recycled product is somehow inferior. How does that factor in your thinking, Rosalie, and talk about the kind of cost and the commercial viability of your manufacturing pipeline?
Okay, yeah. So we're not a charity. We're a for-profit company, and we do exclusively work with 100% recycled materials. So commercially, it does work. Our customers are willing to pay a premium to have materials that are beautiful and high quality, but also have that narrative as well. And often, I think you probably saw in some of the materials that I showcased on the slides, that you can actually see the history of the plastics in the finished panels, and that's actually quite an important factor for our customers, because it does build that narrative and people that can actually see exactly where it comes from. And in many ways, because every single panel is completely unique, because it's come from a different waste stream, it's unique, and then it has more emotional kind of durability. People are connected to it a lot more, and value it more, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, we're seeing real kind of increase in demand for sustainable materials in general across the board, not just plastics, but certainly, like with what we're doing, a real increase in appetite for high value materials that are sustainable and that also don't compromise on quality or aesthetics.
Great, yeah, really desirable, and I love the whole, the visibility, seeing the old plastic peg in the worktop there. It's fantastic. I think we've covered a few things this afternoon, which raises questions about whose responsibility is it, but also seeing the kind of real ways in which technology can help to address these really challenging problems around plastic waste in particular. Is it the manufacturer's problem, and is it about putting barcodes and tags on products to make manufacturers more responsible for their supply chain? Is it about us as consumers, that we need to be much more mindful of what we're buying and what happens to the waste? And is it about creating value out of that waste so that it's an opportunity for other businesses to start up and use that waste? I mean, I guess the obvious answer is it's all three of those things, but I'm happy for anyone to come in if you've got thoughts on where the responsibility lies.
I mean, there is legislation coming up, so the government has already said that this is not acceptable and that we need to do, everybody needs to do more about it. And it's clear that, if it comes from legislation, manufacturers will need to do it. Our point of view from Polytag is that we need to make it as easy for everyone to do it. So as we facilitate it through apps, through digitalization, etc., it's going to be easier for everybody, and it's going to hopefully happen, and we're going to see it in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, making it easy is a real key component. Jane, did you want to come in?
Well, no, really just to sort of support and echo of the people's thoughts, just in that if Coca-Cola has been labelled as the worst polluter in the world, with the largest amount of litter being their product, I don't think they can kind of avoid a certain level of responsibility that they really should take on in whatever way, whether it's by law through extended producer responsibility and so on. I don't think they can avoid their role in it and pass it entirely onto the consumer. They're going to make things readily available, like plastic bottles, then need to take some responsibility about how their onwards transition once they finish the end of their life. But yeah, I just also wanted to say I'm kind of laughing, but not in any mean way, just at the thoughts of the cement mortar tubs and that end of it being as beautiful as Rosalie's art, and how really we're looking at quite a different market there. I don't think that we could quite sell it in the same way that Rosalie probably sells her products with quite a kind of high.
You never know. You haven't sent us your mortar tubs yet.
Clearly not. We should work together on this for sure. I think the price of the plastic is clearly a really big deal for us, and the recycler is. I think at the moment it might be marginally cheaper, but there was a point where it was quite a bit more expensive to buy in granular from recycled materials than virgin plastic. And that was one of the huge challenges that we faced when the market upset happened last year with the price of oil and so on. So that is a big challenge for us. And unfortunately, we can't rely on creating beautiful pieces in order to be able to add value to the products, because they're such a functional item used on construction sites.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about, the functionality of plastic, why it is such a useful material. But I appreciate your point there about Coca-Cola and, the bad PR that comes from seeing Coca-Cola bottles sort of littering the environment. And I guess brands are really starting to think, actually, we don't want our name associated with this, environmental catastrophe, and I guess that is a big motivator. But just seems so counterintuitive, actually, that the recycled pellets are expensive, more expensive than the virgin material. So really, really difficult challenges to overcome. We're welcoming anyone to ask a question in the comment stream if there's any comment you'd like to make or a question for any of our speakers. But while we're waiting for another question, can I just ask our panel, how important is it to be based in Wales? Has it been helpful on your journey? What support have you had? And how does it help the fact that Wales is such a world leader on recycling? Presumably that has been a great context in which to start up and grow.
Absolutely, yes. For us, the Welsh Government approached us to run this pilot. So thanks to Howard Davies that works with the government there. And also we've received funding to work with the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in Broughton. So it's been amazing being in Wales and enjoying this ambition, really, of becoming one of the most one of the countries with the higher returns and the higher recycling rates.
I'd second that.
Absolutely. Same for us. The funding's a big deal, obviously. That our project was a funded project, but it's a collaborative project, all with Welsh organisations, all the project partners are Welsh. But it's more the commitment, and COVID was really difficult for us, as I mentioned during the presentation. But everybody stuck at it, and also looked for other added benefits during the project, like finding all those mortar tubs, and instead of just going, oh yeah, that's great. Well, it wasn't really part of the project. We've used a small amount of them in trial, but the rest of them, I believe, is now a decent commercial arrangement between the cement company and the waste processor. So it was more just looking for opportunities to make a difference, actually, that all of the project partners have done throughout. And I really think that is unique to Wales, that genuine commitment to recycling, to the environment, to waste minimisation. To a sensible sort of waste management approach to things.
Angus, did you want to share something before we close?
Yeah, just to say we've had fantastic support from the Welsh Government, and kind of almost to the extent we couldn't have done it without them. And it hasn't just been, grant-based, it's also been advice-based. And so there's been, really practical, rolled-up sleeves help. So we're very grateful for that.
I think we're all really grateful to live in a nation that is taking its global responsibilities so seriously, and we have made such progress on this over the last few years. It's really great to hear from all of you with your pioneering entrepreneurial missions, and it's people like you who are demonstrating the solutions that can work and trying to solve the problem for all of us. And hopefully you're an inspiring example to other entrepreneurs across Wales who have similar ideas about how we must change the way we make things, change the way we buy things, and really try and take the challenge on. It offers huge opportunities for businesses as much as it is a problem and a challenge. Turning our waste streams into value is a massive opportunity for entrepreneurs. And with such a supportive environment here in Wales, embracing the technology and the green credentials of businesses like yours, it's such a great context. So I really appreciate you all giving us your time this afternoon to tell us a bit about your companies, and really wish you all the best. We look forward to hearing about how that trial goes in Conway and seeing what we can learn from that. But over the next few years, things are going to change radically and rapidly, and you guys are all part of that movement. So thank you very much for your inspiration, and thank you to all of you tuning in to listen. I've been Dawn Lyle from For the Region, and that's the end of this afternoon's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Rewatch all of our sessions online. Thank you to our partners.